So, an explanation of what we're doing is you're writing a blog every week, which is covering this whole process of us having shut down Sage House whilst coronavirus is happening. But we just thought we'd find another way to try and communicate with people, in short, what we're doing. So we're looking at week 1, which was now 7 weeks ago, and we are now looking at where we are now as well. So it's kind of a bit of then and a bit of now. So I think our first thing is we're talking about the activities and wellbeing packs, which was an idea that you came up with kind of week 1. We had a few more staff members here. And do you want to just tell us about that process, that thought that you had?
So really came about as a result of talking to my sister, who owns a print business, and she was, of course, lost all her business because it related to events and printing materials, and she's quite philanthropic and was kind of thinking, well, what can I do to help during this time? And at the time, you know, we were going through the process here of thinking, well, how are we going to try and keep people entertained for however long it's going to last for? So getting together some packs just seemed like a pretty good idea that, you know, that people might find entertaining, maybe a bit of some jokes, some puzzles, and we still had staff about in Sage House at the time, so basically we all just spent our time for a couple of hours looking for things that we thought might be of interest to people and getting them in the packs. And I think for all of us it's gone and been much more successful than we ever thought that would be.
Yeah. Well, so Diane, you've been kind of managing a lot of it from the outset. So I mean, even kind of talking to the printers now. So week 1, what were our expectations? And I guess kind of jumping into now where we are, both of you can kind of chime in, but where are we now with it?
I think when we originally decided to do them, it was for our customer base, which we knew was relatively manageable, but it soon became apparent very, very quickly that there was a bigger need out there for them. Not only from social media, putting out what we were going to be doing, but I started to contact all the parish town clerks, because not only do they know people who locally with dementia, but also people who are isolated, a bit lonely, who would benefit from being stimulated and kept busy from the packs. And it just escalated all of a sudden, you know.
So you talk about manageable. What does that look like? What numbers are we looking at?
So I think originally when I was talking to my sister, I said to her, well, I think I've got about 150 customers with day breaks and wayfinding customers, and therefore if you do me 300, that will be fab.
That was like our kind of blue sky thinking, 300.
Yeah, let's think big. Let's think big.
So now, so we're a bit further ahead. We've done our first month. Now we're in our second month. How many did we get out in the first month?
We got out the first month 1,000.
1,000
copies.
So that's quite a big jump from the 300.
It's huge.
So how was that like managing 1,000? Because 300 was manageable.
Well, it was busy and a little bit difficult. We were starting to get an awful lot of requests from around the country, one even in Pakistan as well, which went out as a digital version. So manageable because we've now got a list for the second batch, but we've also, now we're talking to the domiciliary care businesses, so going down a different avenue of potential new customers, and now that list is growing as well. So we printed more this time. I've got no doubt we're going to run out again.
So what number are we up to now? So 2 months in, from 300 we wanted to get out locally. How many will we have got out at the end of these 2 months?
That would be 2,400.
2,000. That doesn't include downloads as well, which we've been putting out.
There's a lot of downloads, because a lot of care homes around the country have wanted them. They're going to print them their end, so then however many residents they've got to care for, so that could add on an awful lot more.
Great.
And doesn't include the other little pack that has gone out as well.
Yeah.
That was just a smaller version of the booklet, which was just slightly different, that my sister had done for her local area, so she sent a whole bunch of those down at the same time. So.
Yeah. So what's the response we've had from these? Because obviously getting them out's great. Have we seen a response of people kind of going back to us with that? Any like interesting things.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have come back and just said, "Oh, thanks so much. We've actually got something to do, and that the carer and the customer can do together. So it just keeps them busy, or the customer can do it so the carer can have a little bit of free time to go and do whatever they need to do." But we've had a lot of people who've requested them for their parents who live in different areas of the country, and the feedback via them has been that they love them and when's the next one coming out.
Yeah,
I think some of the nice feedback as well has been from the acute sector, so some of the hospitals. We've had locally one of their wards who's come back and just said really helped to keep their patients entertained, love the cards that are involved in the book, and great for cognitively stimulating. So yes, it's about activity, keeping busy and engaged, but it's also about how do you communicate with people who have a dementia, and we all know that communication's really important.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at a time like this. Okay, so moving on from the packs, which clearly have been a huge success, and we're going to continue to get those out, and depending on what the next month looks like, I think we've got enough stuff for a pack 3, haven't we? Which is exciting.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So one of the other things that you looked at week 1 was having to extend services that we were obviously running from this building, and it was face to face. So what happened there? What were those kind of thought processes?
I suppose to begin with, the first few days were a feeling of loss for all of the staff.
Sure.
We, not only did we miss our customers, we knew that we couldn't deliver what we normally delivered, especially our daybreak service, which was really intense for our customers. So I think the first few days for us really were, we don't know what to do. A bit of bewilderment, a bit of this isn't going to work. What does Sage House do going forwards? But it was interesting because it happened almost within a few days. All of us at the same time got to this point of, hang on a moment, right, what do people need? We're starting to get phone calls through, so let's extend the amount of time that we're available for. So before we would be open from 9 until 5, let's extend that out. We know we've got a lot of people who get up early in the morning, so opening at 7 and then not closing phones until 7 o'clock in the evening. And importantly, keeping them open over the weekend as well.
Yeah.
We then started to think forward. So that was kind of the here and now as to what might be happening, but then started to think forward about how actually, what are people going to need if our customer base, which we know they are shielding for any length of time? What are they going to need to support them? And of course, we know that a lot of our customers don't have carers who live locally to them. They don't have family who live locally. So simple things like shopping were going to be incredibly difficult. So getting those processes set up and in place, ready for, let's get ready to start a shopping service. Now, actually, it turned out it was probably 3 or 4 weeks before we started to get those referrals in. But what it meant was, because we'd been quite agile in thinking that through at the beginning, that we were ready when the first shop did come through the door that we needed to do. It was all systems go and ready to go. We weren't having to think about, oh crikey, what needs to happen, what data do we need to capture, where are we going to go shopping or anything else, and what volunteers might be available. So I guess that's how it started, and we also looked at thought about, as time goes on, people are going to get incredibly lonely.
Yeah, so I guess we are. So now where we are, looking back at those decisions you made around extending services, creating a brand new service to our befriending service, which is a telephone service, the shopping. What are the responses to that? Is there anything you look back on and go, oh, we could have tweaked that, or how have you seen that happen? I think there's nothing I look back on and think, oh, I wish we'd done that differently. I think what we did was we looked at what have we got currently, what
what are people going to need in the future, but how do we take care of the customers that we've got at the moment, with our daily calls and everything else to them. I don't think there's anything I would change necessarily about what we did.
Okay, that's fine.
No.
That's great.
I think what's been nice, the involvement that I've had to do with the Wayfinders and befriending services, people have been reaching out again across the country who are worried about their mum and dad. So one of them is maybe the carer, that they've seen that the carer is actually seriously going downhill since all of this has been happening, and reached out and just want some support. So I've then been able to pass them to the Wayfinders for them to give them support, and the lady in Pakistan who was reaching out, for a mum, they're now in communication with them. So it's just opened everything up hugely.
I think in a way, we benefited from the fact that we are quite a new organisation, because what that means is that actually when it comes to the technology side of things, we were pretty well set, ready to go. We didn't necessarily use it anywhere near to the degree we do now, but actually we had a kind of systems in place that enabled all of a sudden the phones to switch to be out in the community, the fact that everyone had a laptop and could dial in and use Teams and Zoom and all the other technology. So we probably, when I compare us to other organisations that I talk to, at a press of a button we could all go home and work if needed. Well, obviously everyone who needed to could go home and work, and the systems were there. So it was a benefit to being relatively new, because of course we'd only just not long before taken all the technology on and got ourselves sorted.
And so we've been talking about things that we were always doing, which was providing services for our customers, their families and their friends, extending our services so that we were reaching at a time like this, specifically reaching people more when they needed it, and by sending hours and sort of having telephone calls to do our befriending service. But in week one, kind of a strange thing happened, that we found out quite quickly that we were going to be supporting people in ways that we didn't realise that we were going to be supporting them. I think both of you were kind of key around, we'll call him Mr. G, so we don't have to use his name. So talk about that, because I remember we were all here when it happened, and I think it was a time which kind of hit us all actually really personally, but also emotionally.
Yeah, it was really early. It was in the first week, I think. And the reason it happened was because the hospitals were getting themselves prepared, basically emptying wards out, so that they could set up COVID wards, essentially. So in doing that, what they were doing was getting people discharged from hospital as quickly as possible, and that's where the referral came from, was hospital social worker who needed Mr. G to go home. And I suppose the reason it hit so hard was that it's hard to believe that in this day and age, that it still exists where people don't have things like a kettle, a toaster, a microwave, bedding, didn't have a fridge, and that only kind of became apparent when he was going home and all of a sudden a carer went in to go and make him his evening meal, to find that the only thing I think he had in his flat was half a banana and a couple of slices of bread. And that's, you go from this hectic setting up of new services, trying to be strategic, to think forward, and all of a sudden I felt like I was completely grounded by where Mr. G, his situation, and how basic.
Yeah, so we were in the office when Sally came in and told us. Do you quickly, what was that time process? Because
pretty quick.
Yeah, because I remember Sally coming in, sitting down and saying, I've just had a message from someone, this is the situation. He doesn't. He has a sofa and he has a bed, but he doesn't have a fridge. He doesn't have anything to cook any food with. And I think within about an hour, you had found a local restaurant that was willing to provide meals for, I think, a week or 2 weeks free of charge.
Yeah.
But what was the rest of that?
I think that was probably because we'd already putting together compiling a list of people in the areas who were still going to be able to do a service, and were still going to be able to deliver meals, fruit and veg and things for our customers. So I'd already started that. So then I sort of jumped on the bandwagon and thought, well, who can give us something for free for him? And then we had a look around what we had at Sage House, didn't we? Like, what have we got that we can give him? I mean, desperate situations, and it was incredibly sad, actually. Like you said, that how can someone need that, and someone who's starving there? So and I think we did a shout out for some of the items as well. Literally everything just came together, and then it was all loaded up into a car, and there you go.
I mean, how many hours did that, from Sally walking in and us packing up 2 people's cars worth of stuff? What was that turnaround, do you reckon?
Oh, I reckon a couple of hours.
Yeah, it was about that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was really quick.
And it was great because you then had a message back just saying how happy this guy was. And
the message that came back was just the digestive biscuits alone that we'd sent down, that we'd nicked out of Daybreaks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Daybreaks. What a difference. Yeah, sorry, Daybreaks, or replaced your biscuits.
Yeah.
But what a difference that had made. You know, the first thing that happened was he got handed a pack of digestives. He was sat in bed, and big smile on his face as he was watching all these things be brought in for him. So yeah.
Amazing. And so now, once again, we're at, sort of 7 weeks, 6 weeks down the line. That hasn't stopped. We've had a few other extra bits that have kind of come in, haven't we? I think recently we helped someone with some fresh bedding because someone was, sort of came out from hospital but just didn't have any bedding, and that needed replacing.
We've done beds
as well.
Beds, yeah. Physical
your
beds.
Son's bed. You stole your son's bed, didn't you?
Yeah, it was really
the commitment for you. Yeah.
Literally, I'd ordered him a new bed and it was coming the next day. So it was like, well, actually, we've got a perfectly nice bed. He just wanted a double instead of a single, and it's a really nice bed. So that worked out really well. But I think on the bedding side, you put a shout out on social media. We had bedding in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it was literally 20 minutes later.
It's just like how.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, the support that we've had, and the fact that we've been able to manage to get our hands on some of the items for these people.
It's kind of what it's about at the moment, though, isn't it? It's that people want to help, and if you ask for help and it's something that's in people's gift to give, then they are.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing about this point in time, is that, I think I've never known it.
No.
And we spend a lot of time, don't we, in our day-to-day life normally sort of saying, oh, please, would you like to give us some money, or would you like to give us this, because we're a charity. But, now it's the whole way of working. And I suppose it's where people have got a bit more time, they're at home, they're thinking about, how difficult life is. So the fact is, when you ask for a single sheet, people go, well, do you know what? I have got one that's in my cupboard, and I'm happy to give it to you because I know you're going to make sure someone who's actually really vulnerable, who wouldn't be able to go home and actually stay at home. And that was the latest one. They were trying to discharge her from a residential home.
Yeah. It's strange times. We'll just end it here because we've kind of finished week 1, but I think we're going to come back and do week 2 at some point, and look back as we kind of do this. But yeah, so thank you very much for listening, and we'll do week 2 another time. Cool. Good job, everybody.
Yay!
Cool. Yeah, you're like a little host, aren't you?